With me, I have Nik Alleyne. Hopefully, I managed to nail this one. And who's a Sense instructor and an information security professional. So thank you for taking the time. What I usually like to ask from my interview subject is to start at the very, very beginning. So when was your first encounter with computers?
My first encounter with computers is probably dating myself here, obviously. Maybe is it 1985 or something like that? I think that's when Windows first got launched or something like that. I stand corrected, but my first interaction was I think somewhere around 1985. But then later on, I started spending more time with it as I got into my first job.
Okay, which was what kind of first job?
My first job was at a newspaper company where I typed classified ads. You know, like today there's Craigslist, but previously there was the newspapers that had the classified ads. So I literally was one of those persons that did the data entry, typing up the classified ads.
Okay, and in terms of geographical location, where are we at this time?
Oh, you mean at that time?
Yeah.
Oh, at that point I was in my home country where I was born in Guyana, South America.
Which city or town we're talking
Oh,
about?
that's in Georgetown.
Georgetown,
Guyana.
okay.
Yeah, the newspaper company is named the Guyana Chronicle.
And so your job was there to do the editing of the newspaper, or
data entry. I just was out of school, and that was my first job. And all I was doing is typing classified ads.
So school, you mean high school?
High school,
or
out of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was probably just like I presume you had plans to continue with your studies, or?
I never wanted to study computers. That was never on my list.
But after high school, were you thinking about going to university or
yes,
college
definitely.
or something
And
like
I did go to university, but it was never a thought for me to study anything around computers. My intention was to study accounting. I even went to university to study accounting, and after one semester, I dropped out.
Okay, this was still in Georgetown,
Yes,
or
yes.
like you had a local college there or something,
yes.
and you went
Local
for
university.
accounting, and you realized that it's just very dry to you, or what happened? Why did you drop out? Because your original plan was to do accounting.
I don't think that I recognize that it was right to me, but maybe it just never liked me. Let's step back for a second. As I said, when I left high school, I never thought about studying accounting. I actually applied for my first job at the newspaper company for a job in the accounting department. And I got denied that job. Like I was not successful. But they called me back and gave me a job for computers where I type in classified ads. I didn't really ask for that, but maybe they saw something in the interview. And then I went to university to study the accounting, and then I dropped out. So you can see, it seems like I like going towards accounting, but it doesn't like coming towards me.
Okay.
So the computer thing actually started to fall into place because the guy that ran the IT department at the newspaper company, whatever he saw in me, yes, I was typing classified ads, but there were other things I was doing, like, learning, doing some networking stuff, some programming stuff, and so on. So whatever he saw, he's the one that suggested I should understudy him. And even I rejected him also because, once again, I wanted to study accounting.
But at this point, you already were interested in computer networks and programming,
I wouldn't necessarily say I was interested. I would say it's something I was doing because, once again, all the time, at least for these first few years, my interest was accounting. But it's until I went to university.
I was just trying to understand how these two relate. For me, accounting doesn't involve creating computer networks.
It doesn't. But remember, the key takeaway was that I was doing the classified ads, so I was typing on the computer. So I was literally working at the computer from that perspective. But then at the same time, out of curiosity, these guys are doing the other thing with networking and all that. So I just was doing a little bit here and a little bit there. It wasn't my job, but it's just something that I figure I can help out with and learn something.
Hey, Nick, plug this cable in.
Something like that.
All right.
Yeah. Or okay, you do this for me, or do that for me. Yeah, it's basically that's the idea.
Okay. So what happened afterwards? You dropped out of the college year, first year.
Yeah, but like the first semester, after the first semester, I recognized,
first semester, you mean?
Yeah, this was not for me. And I figured, you know what, when you look at things, the computer side of it seems to be coming somewhat naturally. So I went back to university and studied computer science, and like they say, the rest is history.
Well, let's not jump that fast. So you went back, same university?
Yes,
you
same
took
university, yes.
I presume computer science or
Yes, I
something
did my
like that,
BSc
or
there.
electrical engineering, or it was it computer science?
Computer
Okay.
science degree. Yes.
All right. So now that's like what what 1988
No.
or something like that, or
Yeah. So that was.
or even no, that was well, you said it was high
So
school,
no.
so
I started university, I think, in either 97 or probably 98. And I think I
okay,
finished around 2002 or something like that.
okay,
So yeah, I think that was it.
all right. So what happens afterwards?
Well, like I said, everything else started to fall into place. I started taking on more responsibilities on the computer side.
You were still working while you were taking your
Yes,
university
yes,
years at the newspaper then.
that's right.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough. So I was in one of those situations where, like I told the general manager at that time, I cannot afford not to go to university, but I cannot afford to quit my job. So fortunately for me, the manager, gave me the balance where he said, okay, you will come off of the full-time role. We will hire you part-time, so you will still get to go study.
Mhm.
So fortunately for me, I was blessed on that situation.
All right, cool. So you finished college and then you stayed at the newspaper?
I stayed there for, in total, that was, I know I'm jumping ahead, but with the exception of my current job, that was the job I was the longest at. So I spent almost 9 years plus there.
Mhm.
And then grew into different roles, did different things. Like when the internet first got popular around in Guyana, we move a lot of the content development and so on in-house. Some of the stuff was contracted outside. So we, like the first time when the website and so on was actually built internally, it was the team that I was on that we took over that entire responsibility. But once I moved on from there, I then worked for Western Union
Okay.
as a system support specialist, where I would go all around Guyana setting up and tearing down systems for Western Union, but at the same time working out of the corporate office in Guyana, helping to support that infrastructure.
All right. And what part of your career security comes into play then?
Okay, great question. So
Because setting up computer networks, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It was a little bit of security, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
but like,
So I really started taking security more seriously when I migrated to Canada, which was 2007. So I went to school again and I did a postgrad certificate. I think it was a diploma in wireless networking, specialization in security, more so wireless broadband and security, I believe it was.
that's a
And
great combination. Those are my favorite topics.
yes, and my first job, I really started transitioning more, focusing on things from the security side rather than the infrastructure side. I worked at a private boarding school in Mississauga, Ontario, and then once I left that job, I worked for a large Canadian company that focused on health sciences and so on, I think you would call it, or scientific services like DNA testing, air quality testing, petroleum testing, food testing, all of those things. And that was definitely a big opportunity also because that organization had lots of branches all across Canada. So I got to do some really cool things. One of the things I like to tell people about before I was even aware of of Security Onion existing, I actually had built a quote unquote a security like Onion solution where I had just like these virtual machines that had all of these tools on them, and I would deploy them to various sites. And the administrators at those sites would be able to administer their local site if you wish. And then I take all of that data from all of those individual sensors and also push them to corporate. So from the corporate view, I can see across all of the different sites, whereas the administrators are able to manage their local sites. Once again, using all open source tools. So for me, that was a big thing. But at that point in time, I did not even know there was a security onion that existed.
What was the drive to even build such a solution? Like, how did you end up?
Just wanting to learn.
Okay,
right?
so it
Part of
wasn't
it-
something like it was part of your actual job.
no,
You
no.
just thought like, we should get like more visibility, or this
That's
looks
right,
like
that's right.
interesting, and
that's
I
right.
just want to try it out. So
So-
you were more like, whoa, I want to have some more insight on
I
what
want to have
happened.
some more insight. I want to have some more visibility all while learning, because you said you like wireless. So one of the first things that happened when I started that job, I noticed we are running web on the wireless. So when I went to the manager and I said, but
So, sorry to interrupt again. What year we're talking about here?
this is 2009, I believe I started that job.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, having WEP on
Yeah.
wireless on 2009 is
Yeah.
living
That's
dangerously.
right. So I went to the manager and I said, but why are we, the security manager, and I said, why are we running web on this? He said, okay, we'll deal with that later on. It's not really a major concern. I said, okay. Fortunately for me, I had my wireless adapter at that time, right? Because, once again, studied wireless, so wanted to learn a lot more about it. So I just pulled it out of my bag, load up my backtrack at that time, not Kali.
Oh yeah. Backtrack
Yeah.
was
And
even before the auditor.
that's right.
Right?
Right.
Like
Loaded up, captured some packets, broke that, and went back to him and say, here is what we have as a problem. He's like, okay, we're going to fix this right away.
Oh.
And the fix was we solved a couple of problems at the same time. We implemented a Windows certificate authority, and we then implement EAPTTLS on the wireless side, and we then push the certificates down to the clients via group policy. So we were able to be much more secure at that point in time. And that was a cool project.
I think even today, having that one like certificate based authentication is not that common.
I know.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for it.
So that was the wireless part, but then what about the monitoring part?
The rest of the infrastructure, like I said, we built out this solution based on a lot of open source tools. Bandwidth D, we use I think we had the free version of Splunk. We definitely had Snort for the intrusion detection side. We had quite a combination of tools. I think even if I check my email, I probably have the report that I
something like for NetFlow maybe, or
we had stuff for NetFlow. Like Bandwidth D managed the NetFlow, and I'll give you an actual example.
Oh yeah, I'm not really aware of that one.
Yeah, that's an old tool.
Yeah.
For the network monitoring, like the host, we use Nagios. We use CACT.
Those are still very popular.
For NetFlow, we use NFSyn with NFDump. Right. So once again, lots of open source tools. But I'll give you an example here. So one night after we put that solution in, we came in the next day, and there it is, a big bandwidth spike for like about 2-3 hours, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody wants to know what's going on, right? Because at that point in time, you're probably thinking there's a security breach, data exfiltration, or something like that.
Well, I think the time is probably a giveaway.
But it was, fortunately for us, it was not an actual compromise. It was a backup job that was
that's what I was referring to. Like typically backups are gonna be a big spikes and around 2-3 in the morning. That's kind of normal. But if you never look at you don't know that this is like normal usually in networks.
So for me, that was also very, very cool.
Yeah, I think those are very eye-opening moments where you start like getting visibility and you start discovering like, hey, what's this? And you learn a lot. And then next time you go into a different environment, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I know this. This is probably like, well, you still have to verify, of course. But
that's right. And other things too. I mean, like, still focus on the security side. There was no map. Even though we had all of these sites, right, and these sites were all connected, there were no maps to show me how I can get from one device to the next, what the topology looked like. So using Cisco CDP, for example, right, Cisco Discovery Protocol, I was able to map out the entire network. That environment really gave me a great opportunity for learning, which I think is what propelled me to be successful in this job that I'm at right now.
So this was still at this, I don't know what to call it, like research
not research, let's say like
scientific services company. I just want to take maybe one step back. So why Canada? Like, because you wanted to do, if I understood correctly, a postgrad kind of training or
the thing
or you just like, this looks like a good country. I mean, even probably the weather was kind of challenging there.
So none of that. So what happened was,
for me, it would be for sure.
So from like about 2001, the first time I visited Canada was in 2001.
Okay.
Right? And I liked it. So then I visited again, I think 2002. First time 2001 was summer, I believe 2002 fall. And then I visited for almost every year until I migrated. So it's already that I was accustomed to that environment to some extent. Not living there, but visiting relatively frequently. So I have an idea what I'm getting into. And that is why I choose. And then I have friends there and so on that.
And what was the reason for the first visit? You just like
vacation.
Okay.
Just a vacation.
Oh, you just wanted to check it out and like, oh,
my friends invited me over.
I do like this maple syrup thing.
Funny, I like that. No, but my friends invited me over for Caribana, right? That's the Caribbean festival.
Okay.
Yeah, like how they have Carnival.
Yeah.
So it's like a carnival.
Oh, okay.
Like Toronto Carnival. or something like that you want to call it. But it's called Caribana.
All right, okay. I think this is the first time I heard about it, but all right,
good.
cool. And then you just kept like going back basically. All right. So, but it's not the company that you're currently working at, right? So, what happened after spending some time building an awesome infra and some visibility?
So the funny thing is, I got an opportunity. I got the recruiter reached out to me and say, hey, you know what? I think you'd be a good fit for this job. And I applied for the job. Well, you don't really quote unquote apply when a recruiter reaches out to you. But they presented my resume. You know, the individuals that did the interview liked me, and I guess, you know, they hired me, and I've grown there tremendously. And even there, so we spoke about, you know, me studying in Guyana, where I got my degree, and we mentioned that I studied in Canada also, where I got my postgrad, but I also studied in the US, where I got my master's, and I did a cybersecurity with a focus on forensics, and I think something else there. So I've literally studied in Guyana, Canada, as well as the US. Yeah.
All right, and that's the same company you're currently working at?
This is the company I'm currently at.
All right. And how did you end up teaching for SANS then?
Well, I was always a fanboy, if you want to put it that way, of SANS. I actually interacted with SANS prior to my first SANS class. When I say with SANS, I mean with the SANS content.
In what way?
Just that I interacted with the SANS content. Like I was aware of what the content was and the quality of the content.
Oh, okay.
So in 2012, I think it was, this company that I'm at sent me to do the SANS SEC 503 class, which is previously the intrusion detection in depth class, now the network monitoring and threat detection class. And once I did that class, I passed the exam, and SANS reached out to me later on and said, hey, would you mind taking a
SANS reached out to you, or you got the Stephen Northcott email?
I think if I remember correctly, it is one of the young ladies at SANS. I can't remember her name right now. I'll see if I remember it before we finish.
Maybe Wendy. I think she.
No, it's not Wendy.
Before Wendy. Okay.
Before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people got the automated email that had like Stephen Northcott wants you at SANS. Like.
No, I don't think I know that. Maybe I can double check, but I think it's Deanna or one of those. I think her name was.
Could be, yeah. Well, anyway, so you got an email like, hey, you scored well.
Yeah.
And was it because I think probably at the time it was still like community or mentorship or something maybe.
Yeah.
So did you start with that one or?
Great comment. Yeah. So I should try to start with a mentor, but I could never get a full class going. And then I got a call one day that says, hey, you know what? We have a community class that is being run, and we would like you to try with a co-teach. And fortunately for me, Adrienne de Beaupre was the instructor.
Also Canadian.
Yeah, also Canadian.
Well, you're not native born Canadian, but
that's right.
he was in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, cool, you know, he will invite me. He will allow me to do the co-teach. And
which class was that? Because he's doing more.
That was back then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was probably 2015, I think it was. Yeah.
I had no idea that he was also teaching 503.
Yeah. I don't think he teaches it now, but he taught it before. And so I worked with him, and you know, I guess he was satisfied with how I did it, and he let SANS know, and you know, that was for 503. And John Gorenflo, that is here today, when I did the 504 and I passed that, they asked me if I want to co-teach that, and him and I were the first, or I did my first co-teach with him in Colorado. So I guess he was satisfied also, and you know, I teach 504 along with the 503 at that point in time. So,
all right, that's a pretty good combination, I think. You have basically, so we're throwing here the course numbers. The 504 is the hacker techniques and incident handling class. So it's a bit the other side as well. So attacker approach and teaching on. Well, now I think the class went through some revamp where they really look at what artifacts are generated, how you can spot this kind of attack. So it's a pretty cool combination. When you started teaching for SANS in terms of like years, what was that around?
I think it was 2015. I did my first co-teach, and that was the 503 class. And I think 2016, I think I did the 504 co-teach.
Mhm.
And last year, around this time actually, or maybe in July, I think they reached out to me asking if I would mind teaching the SEC 595, which is the machine learning
Yeah.
incident handle, machine learning AI class that we're teaching this week here. And I started laughing because I'm wondering, okay, are they serious? But then I said, give me like a couple of weeks, let me just review the content, because I know the class was out, but I didn't know what the content was like. And I know I could handle the content around this topic, but once again, I didn't know what was in the books.
Yeah, because you never like saw the class.
Yeah, I never saw it before. So after I went through it and I got back to them within a couple of weeks, probably much faster than they anticipated, and they said, okay, would you like to go ahead? And I said, yeah. And I took up a class in the Middle East. And then since then, I've been teaching this class, and it seems to be going good so far.
Awesome. You also wrote books, I believe. So how did that happen? What made you like write a book, and what the books are on?
I blog at securitynik.com. And the first book that came out, I didn't sign up or get up to write a book, if you wish to put it that way. I ran the cybersecurity team in this company that I'm at. I think I was either the manager or the senior manager of cybersecurity at that point, one of the two, it doesn't matter. But I had two young ladies that I had hired straight out of school. And I wanted to figure out, how do I get them up to speed as fast as possible? So I started working on these blog posts. And when I showed them the printouts of the blog posts, they said, you know what, we think this would be better off in a book. And that's how the idea of the book was born. So I just aggregated all of those thoughts that I had and now started expanding on it, making it more structured. And then that was the first book.
Which is on?
Oh, it's called Hack and Detect. So what is going on? If you think about the SEC 504, for example, right, that has the blue and the red concept. The book is not necessarily along that lines, but definitely we focus on the attack as well as the detection. It's not a hacker's book. That's the number one. I see it more of a detection engineering book, if you will.
Yeah, I think these days we call it that. Yeah,
because
or purple teaming-ish a little bit. Yeah,
I don't even want to look at it from that perspective, because for me, most of my work is on the defender side, and I want people to understand when someone breaks in, there's always some artifact that is left. The question is, are you monitoring or capturing that artifact? And if you are, can you detect it? So the book goes through this scenario where you have these two young ladies. One is the hacker, actually three young ladies. We have a hacker, we have the defender, and we have the owner of the business. So the hacker obviously breaks in, and the other detection engineer has to be able to detect and put in measures to prevent this in the future. So it's not just about hacking, it's not just about detection, it's also about actually implementing mitigation strategies. And one of the key things for any SOC is you have to write a report. Right? Whether that is you writing a report to a client, or if you're doing a penetration test and you need to let your client know, you have to write a report. So after every attack, there's an analysis. And after every analysis, there is a write-up on exactly what transpired and what are the recommendations and next steps.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah. So I don't know. I saw this book actually with the Black Friday craziness and my frenzy. Yeah, I think it was dropping it to me because I got your it's the other book, the T-Shark one. I got that one. I was not aware that you have this one. And it just I don't know, popped it up for me. I'm like, yeah, oh, okay, cool. You have multiple books. What was I about to go with that? Yeah, so it looked really interesting, and I think this part that you have the write-up is super useful. Yeah, so even if you're not writing a formal report, I think reporting is really important. If you just write even tickets, like good quality analyst tickets on an incident, or maybe just a detection, and just like stating that I did the alert triage and it's false positive. You really need to like write why is that and what you did, so someone can come back and verify later that I'm seeing the same thing. Okay, there's a good write-up here, so they will close tickets faster if it's just false alerts there. So yeah, and so I saw the book. I haven't checked the stats on it. Like, is it going well? People are finding it, or
people buy it? I mean, like both of the books. Obviously, you have the T-Shark book, so thanks. But the idea was,
I will go for the other one as well, for sure.
The idea, and actually, I if I had known, I could have brought one for you and just signed it.
Oh, that's nice.
Right?
Oh,
Because the two that I brought this week, I'm going to give them away to people in the class.
That's
But
cool. I'm happy to support these good initiatives anyway.
Thank you.
So you're probably not doing it for profit.
no,
And
that's what I'm saying, right?
I think a lot of people think that, oh, I wrote a book, then you become rich. I'm like,
No, it doesn't work like that.
oh, I mean, you should be happy if you're not spending money on it.
That's right. And you know what? Fortunately for us today, there is like Kindle and all of these different type of publishing.
Yeah.
That means that we don't need to go and print copies and store and then
Yeah,
ship and all of that. So like I said, if you look at the book, right, you read, I think it's the first couple pages. There's the young ladies' names. There are the young ladies' name, Anuja and Kenna. They are the two young ladies that I thought I was writing the blog post for, and they recommended the book. So it's not about making the money. If I wanted to make money, I would not have a blog. I would probably write a whole set of books instead and hope to make money from that. If I wanted to make money, I would have my blog probably littered with advertising. That's not my objective, right? So it's more about me learning and sharing my knowledge at the same time.
I mean, that was the whole idea with just writing the book to help others learn.
To help others. Yeah.
Was it self-published or you went to
self-published.
Yeah.
And funny story, the first time, well, obviously the first book, Hack and Detect, I knew nothing about publishing. So I reached out to a couple of publishing houses. I don't want to call names, but some of the ones that would typically be involved in technical books or some of these other things. And some of them did not respond. Some of them did respond, and they say they don't like my writing style. They think that I should write more of a technology book style, a lot of like how-to guides and so on. And that's not my interest. My book, at least the first one there, is based on a story. So for anyone, and sorry that I'm going to call a book here now, but if anyone has ever read the book, The Phoenix Project, my book is along that lines, right? It's not from the same perspective of there's a problem and someone wants to apply security before thinking about operation and all of those things first. It's not that concept, but it's a concept from the perspective of a story on how you go about these issues. So for me, my entire Hack and Detect is a story from the beginning to the end. The young lady started the job today.
That's really cool.
Yeah, she started the job today. She doesn't know anything about the environment. The first thing she does is some threat hunting.
That's very
nice. There's no rules and all of those things in place. Then as she goes on and by the book gets to the end, she would have solved the problem with the hack and then just let the boss lady know that, hey, you know what, we'll look at the next steps as we move forward. But for everything that was compromised, she would have been able to detect via logs, packets, implement mitigation strategies, whether that is changing passwords across Active Directory, whether that is changing passwords or implementing firewalls rules on IP tables. All of that is there.
Oh, that's really cool. I think that even makes it more valuable because it's not a dry book on like, oh, here's the technology, here's how it works. You can run commands like this next thing, but also there's a full like story arc. Like, oh, that's awesome.
For some of the people that actually got back to me about the book, or even some that did some reviews, they said it's one of the best technology books that they've read because like once they started reading, it becomes so captivating. I can't put.
I can imagine. Yeah. It's almost like reading like you said, like a story, and like that's really cool.
Keep in mind though, even though it's like a story, right? We still have all of the technical steps. There's the running of the tools such as Nmap. There's the using of the Metasploit, targeting Metasploitable, compromising, writing scripts via VB script, trying to remove all of those scripts, implementing changes via scripting, automation stuff. So it's not like the book is lacking.
Like basic, right? Technically speaking.
It is enough to get the person who is starting off going very well. It's enough to set you up for success. But it's not a book that you're just going to read a technology book and there's nothing for you to do. Because all of the PCAPs, all of the logs, everything are on GitHub. So even if you decide, I only want to look at this book from the defender's perspective, you can go grab everything from GitHub and you can run the commands and try to solve the problem.
Ah, cool. Yeah. So you don't have to play the attack part if you don't want to.
That's right. You don't have to if you don't want to. Right?
That's really smart. I'm really impressed. I love the idea. Now I'm just gonna go and like buy it immediately. It sounds really cool. And you were turned down by all the publishers that you approached?
Basically, either they did not respond or they wanted me to change my style.
I really hope someone from a publishing company watches this because you miss that a lot. Like.
Yeah, they wanted me to change my style and so on. But like I said, I just did not want a tech book that was a how-to guide. I wanted to tell people a story so they understand what is the problem, what is the solution. Not just here is something, run this, and you get a result, and that is it. That was not my objective.
So, and how did you, were you aware even that self-publishing can be an option? Because I
No,
don't think it's still very well known that you
I
can
don't
do
think
it.
it's
Like,
well known.
yeah.
And obviously, if I had known about it, I would not have made the effort to try to reach out to these people.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know, the second book, I did not even entertain the thought of speaking to anyone else. Obviously, you need people to proofread your work and so on. And going back to the first book, I am very grateful to the quote-unquote open source community. People from the SANS advisory board. We have one guy that works at one of the large grocery stores in Canada. We have a guy out in Australia that helped me proofread. So, it was really, we have another guy that was part of SANS also, I think Tyler Hudak, I think his name is. I haven't heard or seen him in a while or anything like that. I don't know if he directly worked for SANS, but I know for sure he was on the advisory board and so on. But I had great help from people who just say, okay, you know what, I'll read a chapter for you. I'll go through. The guy in Australia literally read the entire book and came back with some great suggestions and so on. But even those one chapters here and there really helped to solve my problem. So
yeah, no, I mean that's still needed. So self-publishing is not about just like, oh, I wrote a book,
no,
slap it out, and then we'll see what happens. Well, all right. So how much time did it take to put this one together? Because it sounds like a lot of effort went into
took
this
a lot
one.
of effort.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact time. Definitely it took a while. Not like years, maybe a couple months.
I wouldn't be surprised if you say like it was not net time, but like I think it was spanning across multiple years, maybe.
Not multiple years.
You got it
just a couple of months.
Like
it took a couple of months because remember the objective started off with just these blog posts. So I had my concept. I knew my objective. I know what is it I wanted to achieve. So it was just for me to start putting my thoughts down, then get people to proofread and then validate, the commands and the results and so on. Because the hardest part is not so much the detection side, it's the attack side. Because remember, you're simulating the attack. And when you simulate the attack, you're testing something for us, then going back and implement it for the book purpose. And next thing you know, you're introducing things in places where they should not be. So fortunately for me, those guys that did the review really caught a lot of those things. So yeah.
How much right after this first one you decided to write a second one?
To be honest, I didn't decide to write the second one also.
So what happened there?
The second one came about because SANS was working on some 1 and 2 day courses. Basically, I think some 1 day courses primarily. So I figured, okay, I can work on something on T#, which I thought would be a build up or at least a supporting supplemental content to the SEC 503.
And I think also for the network forensics
and
class,
for the network forensics class,
like
that
good compliment.
Great.
I was really looking forward for that class, so I was very disappointed when I didn't see. I don't think it was running, right?
It ran.
It ran maybe like a couple of times.
Just a couple of times. And when it did get good reviews, but for whatever reason, it was not. It did not get good sales. To put it that way. But when it did run for the couple of times, the reviews were great.
Man, I totally missed that one. It was, I think it was not pandemic, but like before a little bit, the COVID.
I think this might
it was like 1 or 2 years before or around that time. I can't remember.
It was during the pandemic.
During the pandemic when they decided? Yeah, I can't remember exactly. Yeah. For me, like those are, and for probably everyone, like those are so blurry. Like what happened those 2 years, I have like very vague memories.
Yeah. So SANS wanted to do that, so I figured, okay, I put the content together and let me just at the same time use the content to produce a book. So fortunately, when you think about it, the course is not there, but the book is still there.
Yeah, right? And I guess the topics covered, the content is similar to what you had in the class. It is similar, basically.
Yeah. And to be honest, I take great pride in that book also because once again, all of the content is. When I say all of the content, all of the PCAPs and everything are online. So the book has, so let's say we go through the theory and then I show you the theory with explanations.
Yep, and examples.
And examples, and then you have the challenges where you now have to do it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, there's another section of the book with the answers to the challenge, which once again, whether it is extracting content from PCAP, it is decoding as maybe something is running as SSH, but rather than on port 22, maybe it's port 9999, for example, and Wireshark does not know how to decode it, how to instead switch Wireshark to recognize that. So I think that's another in my opinion, good book, because once again, people are doing hands-on tasks, not just reading. If you're reading a technical book and you want to learn, definitely, I know it's my book, but definitely I am the type of person who learns more from hands-on experience. So this is why I write that way also.
Yeah, yeah. And even if someone is not like, I think the term is kinesthetic learner or
Okay.
something like that, very scientific term. But yeah, when you do hands-on and more practical things, even if you're not that kind of learner, I think it's very important to have just developing muscle reflexes, basically using the tool. So yeah, yeah. Like I said, I have that book, so I sometimes like have an idea and I'm like, I wonder if I can just quickly go to that book and find some sort of like solution for this problem. And I think a couple of cases I'm like, oh, okay, you can do it like this way. So that was pretty useful.
Good to know.
So anything else going on in your life currently? Something that you're working on, another book? Or
No, definitely not another book. I don't anticipate another book right now unless it's in combination with someone else, or collaboration, I should say, with someone else. But I don't envision really getting up and write a book. I do a lot more. I do spend a lot more time right now around the machine learning. So anything I learn, I more than likely I'm going to post on my GitHub or post on my blog. There's no need, in my opinion, for another machine learning book. There are lots of great books out there, lots of great content. Science has a class.
I think you also created a couple blog posts on the Show Me the Packets, or what's the name of the site? Because I bumped into one just recently.
Okay.
Because I think in this machine learning class, one of the exercises for finding C2 for beacon traffic is on I think it's Silk data or something like that. And I don't really use Silk. So with most of the places where we're engaged with clients, we do have either some sort of Zeek deployment, maybe it's just based on Zeek deployment, and I wanted to have Zeek logs. So I'm like, yeah, that's useful, and I do want to have it. There's the what's the name of the tool? Rita from Black Hills and John Strand, which is, I think, a Go implementation. Does not really fit my need because I think it works on the tab separated version of Zeek logs. So it wasn't really my taste. So I started searching and I'm like, there's a blog post on the Show Me the Packets. Oh, it's from Nik. So I started reading it and I'm like, I don't need to do this now. Awesome. So I'm just going to rip off all that thing and use it. Because it's based on Zeek logs and
Zeek DNS logs.
Yeah, do the detection, basically the same kind of Fourier transformation based detection.
And that's a real problem I was solving. Yes, we teach it in the class, right? And you mentioned it's on Show Me the Packet, but it's also on my blog. So anything I put on my blog, I tend to put a copy, dependent on what it is, on Show Me the Packets. If it's something around network forensics and so on, I'm going to put it, but I don't put everything. Using the Zeek log in this case is very good because one, like you said, you use Zeek quite often, and all you have to do, you don't want the tab separated, read the JSON file in and analyze that. But that was a real problem I saw because, yeah, we teach it in the class, but one day, and if you look at the blog post, you'll see that, but one day while I was troubleshooting something on my network, I noticed these DNS requests are just 2 seconds apart from this one host. Just this one host I noticed, just 2 seconds. I thought, that's very strange. So I remembered the Fourier analysis and so on that we're doing in this class, and I used the same concept. Unfortunately for me, there was a guy, Joe, I can't remember his last name, but he works at Target, and he had also done a talk for SANS. So I picked up on what he did, right? Got his permission, I emailed him and so on, and I extend on that to complete what I needed to do. So between what he did and I have done, we have a complete solution now using the literal Zeek data. You can look at it from the packet perspective also, and you can run that script and find the beaconing host on your network.
And what was the end of that host? Like, did you find out what was doing that traffic? Or?
Yeah, and not only the one host now, but when I give it all the data from the Zeek, I think there was 2 or 3 hosts. And I think it's 2 hosts that were actually performing in this way. So now I can go back and I can look it up. I know what it is, that is why it's happening, but it's just that I was surprised at that it's happening with such frequency.
Yeah, but it was not malicious.
It was not malicious. Which is great.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think people would think that we always want to find bad stuff. I don't want to find it. I'm very happy when I conclude that that's a benign thing. Yes. Like, I think with beaconing traffic, for me, one of the challenges is when it's a looser environment where they don't really like have tight controls, and a lot of people like to listen to music, for example. and yeah, things like Spotify or other I think SoundCloud is very annoying as well. The patterns are similar to beaconing traffic, so there is a period of intervals where they reach back, and it's also like a little too perfect intervals there. So
There
a
are
lot
other
of streaming
also.
works this way, and yeah.
Think NTP, for example, you want your time server to go out ever so much time to
Yep.
synchronize time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not that beaconing is bad, it's just context is everything in life.
But it's very periodic.
It's very periodic.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty. So, but anything else that you're currently working on aside from larger projects? I mean,
no, I don't think anything really outside of work. I'm just trying to keep it simple. Try to stay focused on, my continued personal development, as well as, finding ways to continue to share knowledge. Hopefully someone gains something from this talk, but my blog is always there. Obviously the books are there. I'm still teaching for science. We run a lot of cool programs out of work. Right now I'm about to run a program maybe in a couple of weeks' time with some folks out in India, right? Trying to get some of them up to speed so that we can, like, we're running an academy, and then we'll hopefully will hire some of them, something similar to what we do in Canada as well as in Serbia. So, for me, the big thing is I always love working with analysts. Why? Because the people who are coming in are the people that are most hungry. And when I say hungry, I mean to learn.
Yeah.
And the people like you and me who are in this industry for a while tends to want to be the prima donnas, think they know everything, and that can be somewhat problematic at times to work with those people. So I love working with the analysts and the entry level
with
folks.
fresh minds. Yeah.
With the fresh minds, yeah. Because you get to mold them and they want to learn, right? And they're looking to you for inspiration, right? So that's it.
Oh yeah, I absolutely understand that. All right, that sounds awesome, and it's a pretty big undertaking, I believe. So, all right, cool. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. And well, I always look forward when I see your name at a conference where I'm also teaching or just helping out. I'm always eager, like, hey, Nik is there again.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a little bit different. Not something I'm doing every single day, but definitely always an opportunity. Always look forward to an opportunity to share any type of insights or knowledge that I have.
Cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.